And we are recording. What's up, everybody? How's it going, Jessica Jones? How you doing? Jessica Joe. I said Jessica Jones, like the superhero.
Jessica Joe.
Jesus.
That's okay. Jessica Jones is like my favorite, so I'll take that.
That shows how much of a Marvel geek I am for that one comment. Jesus. How's it going
Um,
today, though? How you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, doing good. How are you doing?
Can't complain. Excited for the conversation as always. So real hyped for that.
Yes, me too. Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like I had like people like who I know in real life, like not on the internet, who it's weird you have to make that distinction nowadays. But like friends I know in real life, they're like after our episode they were asking me about like mainly the Area 51 related stuff. Like they were like, I don't think anyone really mentioned the astral projection, but I was like, dog, you're kind of missing like the coolest part of it if you think about it. And then they were like, nah, they were just so like hyped about, like two or three of them were like questioning me about it, and I was like, yeah, it was pretty sick. And then everyone's like, "Oh, how'd you find her?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just DM'd her on Instagram. Like how I find everybody."
It's seriously so cool how you found me too, because it's like it's not like I leave that comment all the time everywhere, but for
Yeah.
some reason on that page I felt inspired to like leave that comment, and then you found it. It's just so cool. Which, by the way, since you brought it up, I have to. My little brother, he got me this after
Oh
the
hell yeah,
last podcast.
that's
So
clean.
cute, right?
That's clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's even weirder is like messaged you initially on my personal account, not the podcast account, and it's like
Yeah.
I probably follow like 30 accounts on my personal, and just like I don't go on it at all. But the fact that I did, I was like, ah, that's. I was thinking about that after we talked. I was like, this is weird how this shit just worked out, man.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, that's
crazy.
exciting that people were asking you about it and interested, because I feel like it's such a cool subject.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
it's exciting to talk about, and it's exciting when people are actually interested, because yeah, I don't know, we need more people interested in that stuff, you know?
Yeah,
So,
you're telling me. Yeah, I did uh I have like a solo podcast thing that I'm doing within this like format or whatever, just because it's like I don't know, sometimes at night I'm like I could talk for a bit, just be a weirdo.
totally.
And I did one about like the congressional hearings on the UFOs, and it was like I had some strong opinions, but it's interesting because like not a lot of media coverage, not a lot of discussion on social media, even a post from like the pages you'd expect to talk about them, but not like random pages where people were really talking. So I was like, pretty underwhelming that your government just admitted they have fucking UFO research groups, like funded by your
Yeah.
money. It's weird.
Well, I remember like door dashing in 2020. Like I did that full time. I quit my job, and so like I was door dashing during like the lockdowns and stuff. And but I remember walking into like a hotel, and there was this giant um, plasma screen TV, and CNN's on, and it's just like UFOs, and the Pentagon is confirmed. And I have this food, and I'm walking in, and it was like comical. I remember being like, are people looking at this? Like, are they really admitting this right now? But yeah.
Yeah, if
So,
I'm
I
if,
mean,
if I'm not
old news
mistaken, that
for
was
us.
that was when they did like the COVID relief thing too, and they just snuck it
Yeah.
in there. It's
Yeah, they absolutely, yeah.
so weird. Um, yeah, I was like, when that happened, I was full blown like, yeah, fuck you guys. I didn't even pay attention for the sole fact I was just like, I don't even care. Now I find it
Yeah.
interesting that like they're even talking about it, but that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely paid more attention back then probably than I did based on your reaction. Like you probably had the reaction back then that I would have modern day, so it's like it's funny.
Well, I mean, I don't, it just seems like there's such a wall up for so many people when it comes to that subject,
Yeah.
and they just want to not look at it or shut it down or be like, that's, hippy dippy stuff or pseudoscience. And it's like literally the Pentagon announcing it. But I mean, I don't know why we like let sources like that give anything validity, because we know that, you know, they're constantly lying about all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, we already knew it's old news. So,
Yeah, it's so insane how these establishments stay. Like, I'm not spinning. We're not talking about anything new. This is discussed constantly. But it's like if this many people have this opinion on it, how to like I don't know. It's like is that many people who actually want to tap into these networks? Like statistically, it's not. Like they don't get the viewerships they should. I think like Tucker Carlson gets like the most views out of any of those guys, and it's like not
mm,
even anything crazy compared to like Rogan or something like that. Like
right.
it's nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I read that like Taylor Swift has more Twitter followers than CNN. And so whenever I'm talking like MK Ultra or some conspiracy like that involved with celebrities, people automatically shut that down, right? They think they're not owned or controlled by anybody. And I'm like what they're like, what would be the motive? And it's like, well, if they have any motive to influence the masses with a network like CNN, like why, if like Taylor Swift has more followers than CNN, like obviously that's going to be a untapped gold mine of influence. But
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Reach the masses in a what's it called, subconscious level that they don't even really realize. Do you know the rapper XXX Tentacion? He passed away a couple
yeah,
years ago. He was experimenting with frequencies for tuning his music to. For the second half of his career in particular, he was really messing around with changing to certain hertz to resonate with people's minds on like that type of level. And I just find it very interesting because like I never really thought about that. I always realized like there's power to frequencies and whatnot. If you hear certain things, if you move water or whatever, you play certain frequencies, it forms different or things react differently. But to think that music, for instance, can have that sort of thing to it, it's very interesting.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, it's. I guess that brings us to the back to where we started with the some new UFO related stories.
yeah, yeah. So it's interesting because um I have actually been like I've been joking with my family about the podcast, like, oh yeah, like I'm out there talking about it. And um they're just kind of discreetly like, okay, don't drop names. Kind of keep things a little bit under wraps. So
Understandable. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I was kind of kicking myself a little bit, just being like, oh my gosh, yeah, I need to be totally smart about being somewhat confidential about the information I share. But that being said, and again, I don't exactly have permission to tell this story, so I'm going to keep it extremely discreet.
Okay. No
Um,
follow up questions from me. I promise. Okay.
no, you can follow up questions, but I'm not going to name any names. For example, I don't want to get anybody into trouble. And I think what I'm about to say is extremely sacred, like Native American, what's like history. But I don't know, my mind's a little fuzzy today. But um, so I'm not part of a tribe, and I've heard this secondhand. So I feel like it's okay if I share it. But I hope I'm not stepping on any toes by sharing this information. However, I did when I was down at the ranch and we're telling campfire stories with a bunch of cowboys. Um, so some of my family members, again, I'm not going to be too specific, but they're really close friends with actually the chief of the Shoshone Nation. So that's like really exciting to have such an inside view on the
Mm-hmm.
situation, I guess. But I'll just jump into the story. Basically, um, there. So back in the day, like I think it was Brigham Young who was coming and like settling Utah, which is where I live. They were settling it down, and they wanted back in the day. They actually had like the Mormon people when they came and settled here. They had their own um, set of money, so it was a different currency than what's used currently. And in order to make that money legit, they had to back it by gold. And the Native Americans had a lot of gold. They had like a way of getting this gold. And they, of course, weren't very keen to telling like the white settlers how they were getting it for obvious reasons.
Smart
But
reasons.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like probably the horrible things that happened. But anyway, so um, these people agreed to trade with the settlers and help them out and allow them access to some of their gold in turn for like other tradable items and things. But what they would do is they would take this. I can't remember who it was, but they would take this man and blindfold him and take him into the caves where they would go and get the gold and give it to the settler, and then that's how the exchange was made. But basically, like the great great grandson of the man who the Native Americans would take into these caves, he had learned, it was passed down to him through the generations where these caves were kept with all this gold. So he basically made it his life mission to find these caves and go in and get the gold. And so and this man is alive today, and he is friends with somebody in my family. And like, lucky for this guy, somebody in my family is friends with the native chief.
Of the exact tribe that he associated with prior.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, the one associated with the caves in this circumstance.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry about that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So he went into the caves and he went and he got the gold. And as he's like literally grabbing this gold and he's about to leave, he hears this voice that's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing with that?" And he's like, thought he was in there alone. And the way I heard the story is that he saw this short person with like a giant head, like basically like a midget with a giant head. And so he's just like kind of startled, and he has this gold, but he's like, "I'm taking the gold." And the I forget, there's a name for what they're called, but anyway, basically the little man with the giant head said, "No, you're not taking that gold." And he was like, "Okay." So he like put it back, but he came back a couple days later thinking that he could like trick this guy, and he was just kind of like, "That was weird." And so he came into a different opening in the cave and took that gold from a different opening. Basically, he came back and he went home. But he also found like a peace pipe, which is like really random and weird. But anyway, apparently this guy took a bunch of gold, took a peace pipe, and went home. And yeah, so sorry, I'm like trying to get my thoughts together. So
You're good.
Oh, go ahead. Do you have a
No, I
question?
say you're good. Yeah. Yeah, I can give you. That's so far it's pretty crazy. So I'm gonna correct me if I'm wrong any part of the way here. So this individual in Utah, who's still alive, becomes associated with a native tribe. They start trading.
So actually, he is the descendant of somebody who directly traded with the Native Americans when Brigham Young settled
Gotcha.
the area.
Okay, see,
So
I asked because the timeline was a little fishy for me that way. That makes a lot more sense. I was like, when the Mormons first came out, it wasn't recently. I was like, this guy's a fucking wizard then. Okay, so
no, yeah,
he gets passed down the information, explores the cave because he's associated with the current chief who resides near the cave.
Well, he's not even associated. Sorry, so I've got this all mixed up for you. So he's not even this guy. The guy who's taking the gold is actually not associated with the Native Americans at all. The only reason that he's associated with them is because when Brigham Young came into Utah, this is how I heard the story. But when Brigham Young came and settled the land in Utah with all of the Mormons, they used a different currency than the one from the federal government.
Yep.
But in order to do that, they had to have it backed by gold. So it wasn't Brigham Young, but it was somebody else who was selected within the community. They were selected to communicate with the Native Americans, and the Native Americans agreed to allow these settlers to go get gold from the caves, like they would trade with them. But in return, like they would blindfold them. So anyway, so this man from, I don't know when that was, like the 1800s, right? But he would go and trade with the natives, and they would get the gold, and that's what they used to back their Mormon currency, basically. And that was that. That's how they traded back then. But that man, so his descendant, so
Gotcha.
It's like, I don't know how many generations now, but his descendant had heard about, these stories throughout the years. And yeah, so he knew where the caves were because it was something that was passed down in the family. And so he's thinking to himself, like, I'm going to go infiltrate these caves. Like, I'm just like, that deal, nobody's going to know about it. You know what I mean? So he doesn't directly know a Native American chief. That's just somebody in my family who knows this guy. And this guy is lucky that they knew somebody in my family because, well, I'll continue with the story.
Please
But
do. Sorry for cutting you off. Okay, thank you for the
no,
clarity, though. I appreciate that.
I feel like that needed to be clarified. Like I was kind of
No,
coming in there a little bit.
I feel like out of
all over.
everyone listening to this story right now in the future with the podcast, I think I'm the only person who did clarity on that. But thank you. And sorry to the people listening who just heard the same thing twice. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, totally good. So anyway, so he goes into the cave and he's taking the gold. He hears this voice, and it's like basically a midget with a giant head. That's how he described him. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, I'm taking this gold." And then he's like, "No, you're not." And so he leaves. He comes into the back entrance and he thinks that he can fool this guy. And he's taking this gold. And apparently, he had found in the cave also like a peace pipe. And so he gets home, he has all this gold, and his dad had gotten like horribly sick. Like they thought he was dying kind of thing. And like a week later, his dad apparently gives him a call and is like, "Hey, there's this short," oh my goodness, dog, of course. Buddy. Hey,
It
buddy.
feels good hearing someone else's dog interrupt instead of mine, so don't worry at all.
Yes. So he says there's this short, like his dad calls his son and is like, "Hey, there's this short man with a giant head that's like standing on my couch." And he says that like he needs to talk to you basically. Anyway, so I forgot to mention earlier that they called this guy Shorty. Like that's what, anyway, so he's like, there's this guy who says his name is Shorty, and he's like standing on my couch, and he says that he needs to talk with you. And basically, Shorty ends up like threatening that he's gonna like scalp the guy alive if he doesn't return his gold and stuff. So this guy calls this member of my family who is friends with the native chief and is like, "Hey, so like what do I do? Like there's this situation that's arising." And so he's like, "Okay, yeah, let me talk to the chief." So my family member goes and talks to the chief of the Shoshone Nation and is like, "Hey, you know those caves you have full of gold?" And then he like described like a short little man. He's like, "Do you guys have anything like that?" And like the chief was just like, "Yeah, those are the protectors." So apparently they had like midgets that protect these caves, like gold, and they're like supposed to be like thousands of years old and stuff. Again, this is all legend. This is all cowboy campfire stories, but it's super interesting stuff. But so he's like, "So what?" He's talking to the chief, and he's like, "So what should my friend do?" Because this guy is saying like, "I'm going to scalp you alive and skin you alive if you don't, return this stuff." And so the chief says, "Well, if a protector says something like that, first of all, it's to be taken seriously. Like they really will kill you. And second off, you need to go down to, I can't remember where, but like basically a store and buy like the best, most fanciest tobacco you can find." So apparently that's what tied in with Peace Pipe. Like he had found, because it's like, if the protector likes you, they'll give you like a chance to make things better, but you have to like return the gold and you have to buy them like a bunch of really nice tobacco. So he did, and like he just like left it in the caves, and everything turned out fine. His dad got better and all of that. But yeah, it's that's basically the story. So it'd be really interesting to talk to like somebody who knows their Native American folklore and would it be able to confirm like, oh yeah, we have like the Legend of the Protectors, but that was the latest campfire story I have from the Cowboys.
Well, hell of a story. Obviously it kind of reminisces like the traditional like disturbing a burial ground. That's how I kind of thought of it. Obviously it's not a burial ground, but it's like the same type of premise. You kind of disturb the protected land that these natives had set aside. You encroach on it, and then boom, you get fucked. Basically, some poltergeist movie type of thing, like some full blown. That's eerie, man. That's eerie.
Yeah, it's a fun story nonetheless.
Yeah, no, I feel like the scene and like the situation of hearing a legitimate cowboy around a campfire, like just probably at night, everyone's probably just cozied up, and man,
Uh-huh.
like that. Oh, I'm like imagining as you're saying this, I'm trying to like have a dual like thing in my head of where I'm imagining myself kind of sitting in this campfire, listening to this guy say it. Man, that would be fucking crazy.
Dude, campfire stories like at our reunions and our ranch. Oh my gosh. Like, and half the time it's incredible because half the time you don't know if it's real,
Yeah,
you know? And then but there's always like that chance that it is because it's like I have these family members who really are like close friends for like the past 25 years with like the native chief, and it's like who knows, like, I'm but they're I mean, as far as I know, they're just stories.
yeah, I mean, my campfire stories is usually just like three dudes sitting around, being like, "Yo, you think ghosts are real?" And that's pretty much as much as it amounts to. So this is very refreshing to hear another person talk about something that's like a fantasy of mine to experience. Like, sitting with a cowboy around a campfire in a story, bro, like that would tie my life together. Like I'd have so
Oh,
many questions for
yeah.
this guy if I was there about this story. I'd be
I
so drawn
know.
into it.
I know. I'm like, I never think about that sometimes. Like, I'm so lucky to have these family members who are like legit ranchers who are so, it's like a movie, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. They just have the best stories for sure, but
Yeah,
yeah.
you guys living one of my dreams, man. I want to either be on a ranch and just have no one near me that I don't want to talk to unless I want to, or I want to be like Ted Kaczynski without the Unabomber part, but just living in the woods and just isolated. Like I just want to be like in that shit, just doing my own thing. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
did he like did he personally believe the story? Like, did he like think like
I,
say it as if it was legitimate? I mean,
my first reaction is 100%. The only thing that I can think of is if I'm like super cute and gullible and he's like just absolutely having fun with me.
yeah,
That
yeah,
I mean, there's of course that possibility, but I mean, I think no, he legitimately believes it though. And the thing
yeah. Mm,
is, and I legitimately believe that there are so many like legends and myth and folklore and especially in like Native American culture that
yeah.
seem extremely out there that are actually like real. Like I think culture has been whitewashed to a point where we've been gaslighting these people and saying stories like this are fairy tale
Hmm.
when in reality there may be more truth to it. And it's like this protector midget guy, like maybe he genuinely like maybe they have people who live by the caves who just have for generations protected the caves. It's nothing even fantastical, maybe he just caught him stealing the gold and was like, I'm gonna scalp you if you don't
Yeah.
return it. It's like it's not that out there, to be honest, but
I mean, if someone was trying to steal my gold, I think I'd probably have the same reaction. I mean, just from a human perspective,
right.
if I had gold stashed away in like a cave and someone just took it, I'd be like, hey, what the hell are you doing? Like,
Well, and it's sacred Native American land as well. And it's just like this white guy just going in being like, my gold, like you can't do that.
dude, it's so ballsy with everything we know from entertainment alone, man. You don't do that shit. Like, if there's one thing you can learn from pop culture, it's just don't mess with native sites. Like that's the best thing you
Yeah.
can learn from that. Don't fall when you're running and don't do that, and you're good. Like that's it.
Yep.
Man,
Absolutely.
that's crazy. Was this the first time you've met this guy, or have you met him, the cowboy? Have you met him prior to this too?
I know this cowboy. Again, I'm not gonna reveal too much. I
Yeah.
just want to be super careful, but no, I've definitely met him before. I mean, yeah, I've known him my whole life.
And does he
So.
typically have like not out there stories, but like overzealous type of stories where it's like a lineage of him being like, oh, so he's got a lot of these things, or is this kind of a one shot like out of the blue?
No, he's definitely has a lot of stories, and I mean, like we're kind of kindred spirits, me and this cowboy, because we're both looking for that paranormal side. We're looking for the UFOs, you know, so we're both more prone to have these types of stories. It's like the last time I was on with you, I was talking about how like I've seen these UFOs, I've astral projected, I've, you know, seen aliens in astral form. And you know, I feel like I'm pretty sound mind in that I can look somebody in the eye and be like, yeah, like, it could be my imagination. Like I'm not, you know. Um, so he's the same way. Like he's like rational, but we're both looking for that. And when you're looking for this kind of stuff and you believe you're gonna find it, you usually do. So, but yeah, his stories are pretty fantastical.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the things where it's like not like a law of attraction type of thing, but in a sense, it's kind of like, okay, if you're openly searching for certain things, inevitably, I believe you're probably gonna find something like that. You know,
Yeah,
if you're thinking in your head all day like, oh, I want a Tesla so bad, you're gonna notice more Teslas on the road. You know, so
exactly.
it's like if you think about, oh, I'm gonna astral project, or but you did it unknowingly back initially, right? If I remember.
Yeah, well, I mean, the first time was kind of one of those like spiritual blueprint unlocking moments where it's like a trigger point you're destined to come across type thing. Cause like I had a near death experience, but other than that, I was looking for it like any time besides the first time that I projected.
Great, gotcha. Well, that's just the
Yep.
universe right there giving you a gift. That's what that was.
Yep.
Um, so is that kind of like the major, or the only story that was kind of shared throughout this campfire sitting? I don't know what you even label it as.
Yeah.
Campfire story, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That was pretty much it. We had pretty mellow time this time at the ranch. I mean, we had a huge storm roll in and mostly we just played games and um we went out on like ATVs and stuff and um, searched around the mountains, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. It was pretty mellow this time around. Not too
Yeah.
many stories this time, but there's that one.
I mean, riding around in ATVs in the desert and mountains isn't mellow to me, but I'm a city guy, so I guess like comparatively that's mellow. But to me, that's like, yo, that's a fucking weekend right there.
Ah, yeah, it was though. I mean, so where the ranch is, there used to be a whole silver mining town with a population of like 4,000 people. So there's just like there's a silver mine and there's like you know, old forts that are
Wow.
military forts that are up and like old broken down cars and all kinds of things that we probably haven't even found yet. But so it's a lot of fun to explore.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. Is there a lot of, is there, this might be a little ridiculous. Is there any like wooded areas near you guys? Like densely wooded? Or is it,
Yeah, no, it
yeah?
is. It is there's like streams and
Oh, hell yeah.
um it is the desert, like it's Nevada, but you
Yeah.
wouldn't believe it once you got out there because for some reason there's just actually like dense foliage. Foliage? I always say that word wrong.
You just said a word I don't even know. I couldn't even register. So you said it right to me. I don't even know, man.
Like yeah.
Crazy, crazy. Um, so part of the reason I wanted to have this pod, well, just to have the conversation, of course, always welcome to come on. I know, like, but part of the reason I wanted to talk was because we were recently talking within the last couple of weeks or something, I think, and you mentioned that you were a freelance writer
Yes.
for like a
Yeah.
living.
Yeah, I do that for a living. Luckily my boyfriend has a job. I'll just say that.
That's like an artist ass answer right there.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, so uh it's been like so much fun pursuing this freelance writing journey and I have been pursuing it since like 2020 like pretty hardcore. Um and it sounds exciting especially because I've been published in a couple places and when you tell people about it it's like oh like you're successful you're doing it but the thing is like I'm at a point in time in the freelancing world where what I make for money like doesn't pay the bills. So, you know, it's like even in like my own community, like my own circle of like friends and family, like I have an uncle who like I earned the nickname Slacker because, you know, it looks like I don't have a job because I'm not making money. So it's not as like glamorous like freelance writing as you might think, but it's definitely I feel like my personal career is snowballing. I recently got an email from an editor saying that I would be published in Chicken Soup for the Soul. So that's really exciting. And then I've been published in a book called Keeping It Under Wraps, Parenthood Uncensored, which is just basically asking like the question of like to have kids or not to have kids. And I kind of touched on like my Mormon upbringing in that post. But yeah, and then there's a couple other little places I've been published, and I'm always submitting and writing. And I think in the long term, a book is where I'm looking towards. But yeah, that's basically the journey right now.
I got to touch upon, you said Chicken Soup for Your Soul?
Oh yeah, it's called, it's by Jack Canfield, and it's Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Okay.
And yeah.
And is it like a magazine? Is it a blog, like a website? What is I'm unfamiliar with the name.
So it's like an anthology of stories. Yeah. And it's been around for like a really long time. It's actually pretty big. Like it's like I think it was a New York Times best-selling book kind of thing for a while. So it's exciting because, you know, if people know the name, they're like, oh wow, you know, because I grew up with those books like on my desk kind of thing. They're usually just stories to help humanity move through different phases of growth and evolution and hardship. So I think the last time we were talking on the podcast, I had told you that like my near-death experience, I hadn't told anybody. I'd only written one article and submitted it. So that was the article that I submitted. So that story is now in a book. So that's exciting.
I can't clap because it'll be too loud, but
Thank you.
That's dope. I'm real happy for that. That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Thank you. It definitely will look good on the resume.
It's got to feel even better than it looks, you know, because you mentioned, you know, you grew up with these on your desk and now you're in that publication. You know, it's a story that you were kind of maybe not reluctant to tell, but you were a little, you know, you didn't let it out there too often. And now it's like, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah. It is exciting. And again, it's like whenever you submit like a cover as a writer, when you submit a cover letter to an editor or, you know, you usually have to, sorry, there's like a train going and my ADD is insane. You usually have to like list where you've been published. And so for most writers and editors, they'll be able to recognize Chicken Soup. So it's exciting to have that on file. And now it's like now I've been published at like 3 kind of reputable places. And so it's definitely feels good.
You're over here beating yourself up, but I'm smiling for you, man. That's awesome. Like, that's amazing. You know, you saying you started like seriously in 2020. 2 years later, you're 3-time published on major things. Like that's dope. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That's a good way to look at it for sure. I think it's just we get so wrapped up at like it's not really an accomplishment unless I have money because that's what puts food on the table and rent. And it's like. It is so true. If I take a step back and look at it the way you just phrased it, then it's great. It's, you know, and it is like, I'm proud of myself for being published 3 times. But again, it's like, you know, it's like, it's not a contract that'll allow me to travel or something, you know, that's everybody's dream. But yeah, it's definitely snowballing, I think.
Listen, I'm not telling you to go, Breaking Bad and start making side money or anything like that. You know, do what you got. Like, you know, it's important to have the money, especially in the structure we live in. Shout out to the government for inflation. But dude, I feel like, you know, it's one of those things, and this is gonna be like my weekly freaking pep talk to somebody about something that didn't need to happen. So bear with me. But I think it's really important because it's like if you look at things from the financial aspect alone. If you have the passion for it, if it's something that's meaningful to you and other people get positive feedback, radiative energy, and you yourself enjoy what you do, the money will inevitably fall in line. I mean, you don't start off as a master electrician. You apprentice. You make shit money. You don't start off as a carpenter. You make shit money. You don't start off as a freaking therapist. You intern. You do shadow sessions for like 300 hours before you even get an actual client. So I mean, I just like, I'm not bashing on you, but you look, I feel like, don't beat yourself up. That's what I'm saying. Like, don't beat yourself up on it. I mean, dude, if I could start something 2 years ago, this hypothetically, and be published in 3 major freaking publications, I'd have an aneurysm every time I looked at my laptop. Like, every time I started writing, I just have a little freaking, I'd tense up. Because I'd be like, yo, like, I'm really doing this right now. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Man. Yeah, that's dope.
Thank you. I can't tell you how much that means to me. Like, that just kind of pumped me up a little bit because, I mean, I think, yeah, it's so important that, like, if I, like, for example, I think this is some great advice that we've just come up with now, thanks to you, but it's just like in the writing world, you can have like these big successes and then like the afterglow, it can fade pretty quickly if you don't remember to hold on to kind of the validation it gives you, although it's like you have to validate yourself before that even happens. But yeah, it's just, you got to celebrate those wins. So
every one of them, no matter how big or small, micro or macro, a win's a win. And that's all in life. Yeah. But yeah, especially when it comes to shit like this, that's beautiful. I mean, J.K. Rowling didn't do Harry Potter until she was over 30. Like, what the fuck's anybody's excuse for anything in the world? It's like, she was like 30 something, mid 30s when she published the first Sorcerer's Stone. It's like, that's one of the biggest IPs that's ever been made. And the woman was over 30, depressed, suicidal, a single mother. No excuse. Don't people need to stop victimizing. Not you, I'm just saying generalized, but like, don't victimize yourself. Totally. People, stick with your guns. If you got a passion, do that shit. It's not worth living the whole life being fucking sad because you hate what you do.
Absolutely. And like, this isn't like, I'm not trying to like throw myself under the bus or call myself out, but I think it is a little bit like narcissistic to be like, I've only been published like 3 times. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay. Take a step back, take a deep breath and get some perspective because, that's an accomplishment. And I don't know. I had my boyfriend's grandma. She's like amazing. I love her, but she's so wise. She's like from the South. She's so wise. But, I was kind of doing the same thing, kind of telling her like, it's slow going, but I've been published here and here. And I love how she put it because she was like, well, like these years are the seeds, you're going to sow everything. You're going to reap everything in a little bit. But right now you're just planting seeds. And that's the best way to look at it right now. So that's basically where I'm at. It's like, halfway through gestation. Is that the right word? Gestation?
Yeah, fits.
But yeah. Anyway.
That's dope, man. That's awesome. Well, I want to kind of linger on the topic as a whole, but for again, that's good shit. Real proud of that. I hope no matter what happens, you just keep going full throttle and keep progressing. And I hope someone out there is listening to this and they're like, oh shit, I like writing. I can do something. I hope that's what happens. You said snowball for yourself. I hope the universe snowballs with all this when everybody shares their passions and whatnot. That's how shit happens, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say too, I've been writing since I was like a kid, like seriously since the 1st grade. And it's just been natural for me. I've been writing short stories. I've been taking like, I used to go around my school and take surveys of people, of things like kind of usually about aliens actually. But I know, right? But so I've been doing it my whole life. And I always knew that I would be a writer. Like I still know that I will be a writer. And I am a writer. But it was really the pandemic, like it was the lockdowns, I should say, the mandates, I should say, of 2020 that really forced me to be alone and have time. So what I did was I had no other choice but to invest in myself in my writing. So I signed up for some classes and I completed like 12 classes on like writing and stuff and just really like buckled down. So that's what I did from 2020 to 2021. Um, and it definitely laid like a foundation for myself and my writing career because I think more than anything, more than what I was even like learning and taught in these classes was I had invested in myself. And to me, that like gave me the confidence that I really did believe in myself because, I had paid for these classes and completed them. So that helped me to kind of validate myself. And I would say that was the start of my career, even before I had been paid. So.
That's awesome. So was it solely the lack of like things to do during the pandemic that like the lockdowns and shit that kind of made you do it, or did you already have the prior inclination that you were gonna like do it eventually anyways?
Um, I kind of like the way that I phrase it is that I put my dreams on like the back burner of my life
Mm-hmm.
because I had gotten so easily distracted by like bills and boys and jobs and things like that, just life in general. And it's just the thing is like there's no excuses, and I absolutely could have found the time to do this, but it wasn't until I had spent hours alone in the darkness in like lockdown where I was like, I came to this realization where I was like, holy shit, I'm never going to do this. Like, I'm never going to actually take my writing career seriously. I'm never going to write. Um, I'm never going to take these classes. Like, never. And I realized that like there is an infinite amount of excuses that exist and they will forever. So unless you kind of, I say like Mel Robbins it, where it's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you force yourself to just do something,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to happen. So it was kind of, that was my breakthrough, I think, through the dark. And I just made myself sign up for these classes. And then I completed all of them because I just was like, no, I'm doing this. I have to, know.
That's awesome, man. And was it how was the like adaptation to starting the classes? Because you said you'd been writing since you were in first grade, stories and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. What was like the your initial reaction? Was it overwhelmness or was it like kind of just like felt cozy, like kind of at home, like this is what you're supposed to be doing type of thing?
Definitely cozy.
That's good.
I think signing up for it was the scariest part,
Yeah.
and then like yeah. So I'll just share the specific classes that I took also because they're awesome for anybody who's interested in writing and stuff. It's writinglaunch.com, and it's just a writing program that's run by editor Jacob Jans and writer Ian Chandler. And Jacob Jans runs Freedom with Writing, which, and like authors publish. So they're kind of like these big writing pages that will send you writing jobs, basically. I would highly suggest, like, if you're a writer, signing up for those
And
email
what's the website
newsletters.
one more time?
So there's freedomwithwriting.com.
Cool.
Um, that email newsletter will send you basically writing jobs, which is where I got my second publication and my third, actually. So it's pretty cool. And then also there's Authors Publish, and they have a lot of really cool resources for writers. Like they have a free downloadable book called Submit, Publish, Repeat. And you can just download it on your computer. And I mean, it's just really helpful if you're a beginner. But if you're signed up for the Freedom with Writing newsletters, um, they'll send you, they'll often send like a free 1 month pass for writinglaunch.com. So that's like something to look out for because normally like the school that I went to is like $50 a month. Totally worth it, by the way. And I'm not somebody who like spends that kind of money, but it's totally worth it. But you can find a free pass at Freedom with Writing newsletter usually.
Hell yeah, that's dope. And it's all online based. Like they don't send you anything physical.
Yeah, it's all online. And like writinglaunch.com will teach you how to like pitch an editor, how to deal with like invoices, like all the things that you're kind of insecure about as a writer and like things you don't even know you don't know. They kind of like there. I took 12 different classes and you can complete as much as you want in 1 month. So, you know, theoretically speaking, you could take 12 classes in 1 month and only pay $50 and get like the max deal out of it, which is, always exciting. Of course, I didn't do that. I took like 4 months, 5 months, but I did it. So yeah.
Hell yeah. So how long after? Well, during the process, they have you actually writing anything, or is it all kind of like information based that you just kind of use to adapt to future projects?
Um, it's mostly just informational. There are a couple things where you write, but not really. However, if you want to write something and you want to have it looked at, it's really cool because it's super personal. Classes are very limited. So, um, like editor Jacob Jans, I love him. He's awesome. He will actually, like, if you send him an email and you're a student and you're like, hey, how is this pitched towards an editor? Or hey, what do you think about the story or whatever? Um, they'll give you like direct feedback. So again,
Wow.
that's writinglaunch.com, and I'm totally not sponsored,
I
but
am. No, I'm not. Please sponsor me though, right away. Uh, that's
yeah,
dope. I'll throw a link in the description of this as well for anyone who is too lazy to search it themselves.
yeah,
I'm like that. That's why I said that. I always look for links when people mention things in podcasts. That's
yeah.
awesome though. So how long after that was it that you started like using what you were learning and paying for to actually start sending out to for like your own personal use?
So as soon as I finished the course, this is actually kind of funny, but as soon as I finished the courses, I had done basically all of them. I actually had an idea to pitch Jacob Jans himself.
Ballsy.
So I know, right? So I actually completely did a case study for writinglaunch.com and just outlined all of the benefits of the program and how it can help writers. And I just turned around and emailed him in the exact pitch form that he taught us how to pitch. And yeah, that was my first publication, was from my teacher, Jacob Jans. He just bought it it was only like $50, but it was kind of funny because I was like,
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
my money back.
That's dope, man. That's
Yeah.
like when the Sith apprentice approaches the Sith Lord after. When he learns enough information, he starts getting cocky to him. In your case, it worked out though. They usually die, so that's a plus right there.
Yeah, it
That's
did work
dope.
out. It was pretty cool. So that was my first publication. But
Hell yeah,
yeah,
major kudos. And that was 2021, or was that the end of 2020 when that one went through?
that was 2021. Yeah.
Cool. So within a year span, you picked up two other publications as well.
Yeah. So my second one, I found this. Um, so basically, what I'll do is I'll like look for pitch calls or writing calls from different editors of different like magazines or anthologies or whatever. And usually, I find these from the Freedom with Writing newsletter, which has all these lists of jobs. It's an awesome newsletter. I would totally subscribe to it. It's kind of where I got my start, but I found one for a page called Keeping It Under Wraps. And they had already published one book. It was Keeping It Under Wraps, Sex Uncensored. But this one was their second anthology, and it was Keeping It Under Wraps, Parenthood Uncensored. And they were basically just asking for pitches of like, tell us like what you think about parenthood or, whatnot. And so in that moment, the second I saw it, I just wrote something up really quickly. I wasn't even really too concerned about it. It just was from the heart. And I sent it. And I think like a week later, they were like, "Hey, we've selected your story," and so it was really exciting. Yeah,
Hell yeah.
So I forgot to bring that book, but so now I'm published in that book, which is really cool. Um, but yeah. Oh, my
What's the
dog. So
feeling
sorry.
like? What's up?
My dog's just going
Oh, I
crazy.
didn't even hear it. I didn't even hear it, to be honest with you. What's the feeling like knowing like I just said like 6 times, my fault. What's the feeling like? I'm gonna say it again. What's the feeling where it's like I'm in a loophole right now. I'm just gonna move on. I'm done saying like. How does it feel? I just got like stuck in like a Truman Show type of moment or a Groundhog Day. That was brutal. How does it feel like knowing you can say that with confidence that you're published somewhere? You know, like that you've actually like you've been
Yeah.
compensated on a level where it's recognizable that you can physically point to a concrete thing and be like, yeah, like it's out there.
Yeah. Um, I mean, it's amazing. It's really cool, especially to have like not only to be published because I was published at Freedom with Writing with my case study for
Yes.
writing launch, but to have like a book where I'm like in a book. That's, I mean, it's based in France, so it's like I'm out there in France somewhere. That's exciting. Um, it definitely like helps me realize that I'll be able to um, physically manifest the reality that I'm aiming for. It's kind of it definitely adds like some confidence for sure. I love it. I'm very excited about it.
That's awesome. I just imagine some guy named like Francois sitting in a cafe eating a croissant, smoking a cigarette, just reading this, being like, "Oh, Jessa, yes, yes, okay." Terrible French accent, but that makes my night just thinking about that. Like as we're saying, there's some guys reading it like fucking profound. Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, yeah, I definitely feed off the energy. I love it. I'm a writing attention whore. Like I love when people read my stuff. And I've had stuff that people have not really liked. I've had an editor who took my article actually without my permission and posted it on their page. And it was kind of a political piece, and man, like people will just go off. But I'm lucky to have had that experience because it's confirmed to me as well that I'm getting thicker skin and I don't really give a fuck what people think about my writing.
more power.
It's just,
Hell yeah.
yeah. So, yeah.
So let's go like back to like the early type of days. Like I'm talking first grade type of shit. Like what got you
Yeah.
like interested in the writing? Like it's like first grade's pretty crazy to actually remember like being like I like this. Aside from just being like, oh, I'm in school, I gotta write. Like, so what was it
Yeah.
about it that like drew you back then?
Um, that's a great question. I mean, I think there's a couple factors. One is that I'm a talker. Like I talk.
We got that in
My
common. That works.
Right. Yeah, exactly. My mom, like I used to talk so much that she actually got me. This sounds cruel, but it's not. But she got me like a tape recorder because I talked so much that she'd be like talking to that. But so I started telling stories. Like I just would make things up and I would talk into this recorder. But then on top of that, I was always being read stories. So my dad, from a very, very, very young age, basically just treated me like an adult, and he would read me, anything from like Berzinger and
Wow.
like an entire dragon series, and yeah, like Harry Potter and the Sword of Shannara was like a favorite. Bunch of science fiction, fantasy.
Yeah.
So then I just started wanting to create my own stories, I think.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. I never was read the other stories that I remember, but I remember vividly like sitting down every night with my mom and her reading the Harry Potter saga. Probably up until I'm not gonna say what grade because I don't want to get bullied online, but it was like I remember for a while, man. Like it's that's funny how like I feel like a lot of people have that same type of upbringing of a story, and it's like it's cool to
Yeah.
hear that because that does something to you. Like obviously because you're saying it, but that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
was it the sci-fi that really drew you in, you think? Do you think it was like the relationship aspect that you had with the stories? Like was it like kind of a concoction of all the variables? Like, what was the major thing that you think it was?
Um, man, I honestly wish that I could like pinpoint it down more. This is so cheesy, but like from the very essence of like my being, I feel like there's like a message there. And I don't even, the ironic part is I don't even think it's a message that can be put into words. It's just, this, this is so cheesy, but it's like this inner light, you know, that I feel is truth.
Yeah.
And, I feel like I want to, like, I have the urge, like, manifest destiny, except for without the slaughter, um, to share it with the world. And um, one of the ways that I do that the best, I feel like, is writing. Another way is like, you know, public speech. Like I do stand up comedy. I've always loved public speech and have wanted to do that, you know, my whole life. So I think that's a way that I can manifest that kind of energy to share. But for writing for me, there's just something in it. And I feel like I have a lot of similar themes. Like one of the themes is that like, just because somebody's a bad person or like the bad guy, doesn't mean that they don't have light in them as well, and that they're not like the victim in their own way, which is so basic. That's like the most, you know, that's obvious. But for some reason, I always find myself kind of catering to that dynamic. I think because in this day and age, we have so much quick, like canceled, you know, and it's like, I'd much rather humanize the demons. You know what I mean? I think that's a challenge. And I think that's one of the challenges that I am most interested in writing about, humanizing demons.
You think it comes? I'm not trying to like Sigmund Freud right now, but do you think it comes from like a subconscious thing, like inside of you, where like you're? I'm not saying like you're like you have like demons or whatnot. I mean, everyone does in a sense, but like, do you think it's something that you're kind of internally battling with yourself, trying to like put it out there, or is it just like observing it in the unit, like in the world? You're like, oh fuck, that's interesting, because you, as you said, people kind of like to look one dogmatic way of it, opposed to like the duality of everything. So you think it's like internalized or externalized? Where you get that from?
That's such a good question. You're good at those questions.
Oh, thanks, man. I
um,
appreciate that. Thank you.
yeah, no, that's a crazy good question because I think both. On the one hand, I think I'm a good person who sees people, you know, being hated on or spit on or whatever. Even take, for example, like a Trump voter or something. It's like, you know, that person, if you wear a Trump shirt, and I'm not trying to be political here, I'm not voting for anybody, but if if you're an open Trump supporter, that can actually be dangerous. And, you know, it's like I do feel like I want to work to humanize even the most despicable of humans. So on the one hand, there's compassion, but on the other hand, when you're asking if this is kind of a Freudian thing, I never realized this, but I think it absolutely is because, and I'm going to get kind of trippy here for a second,
Please do.
but my first memory ever in this life, I was 3 years old, and I specifically vividly remember my first memory, and it was of burning and torturing fairies. As a 3 year old, I specifically remember being like a hideous witch. And I don't know if this was a dream, if this was a past life, if this was a hallucination. But I used to feed off of the power of these fairies that were being mercilessly tortured and burned. And I've had to deal with that my entire life. Like that's just like my very first memory. So maybe there is a part of me that is scrambling to say, hey, like that incarnation of me has feelings too or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. And maybe that's all in my imagination, but I'll tell you what, for a 3-year-old, that's pretty graphic and vivid.
Yeah, if it's stuck with you that long as well, I think that's a contributing factor.
Yeah.
That's not that I'm calling you old, obviously. I just, you know what I mean. Like it's years.
Yeah.
That sounded bad when I said it. Uh, fuck, man. That's. I just
I know
felt.
we just took a weird turn.
Yeah, that was weird. That was that. Not weird, but that was like. I was really like transcended in that. Like that is. Yeah, it was very weird. Um, crazy. So I guess there's a little bit of both
Mm-hmm.
then, but
Yeah.
the intern. You got me like perplexed, man. Like I don't know, cause I'm like sitting here trying to be like, I don't know, like it's kind of like a Nietzsche type of like approach to it. What I was thinking of, it's kind of like a nihilistic approach where it's like, oh, well, maybe. And again, this is just me saying something. I know nothing about the scenario, of course, what you just told me, but maybe it's like that's a side of yourself that you've kind of suppressed as you've evolved as a person, but now this is a good outlet for the beast to kind of slowly leak out of its cage. You know what I mean? Like the harnessed up
Yeah.
genie's getting kind of out of the bottle when you're able to tap into this type of side of yourself. And maybe it's something that you don't even consciously realize you're holding in, but maybe it's like a deep like scarring type of thing where maybe it's how you personally reflect yourself, like as a
Yeah.
conscious being, and not even just like this carnation. Or maybe it's just like you said, kind of past trauma or like past life or whatnot. But again, yeah, it's very like fatalistic in a sense. It's not a pretty answer. That's why I was like, I'm not gonna say anything at first because it sounds like I'm a dick if I say that. But
No, yeah. I mean, when people say like, oh, like we've all lived as everybody. We've been Jesus, we've been Hitler, we've been, and it gets very, controversial or whatever, but I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I ever actually lived a past life where I was an evil witch who burned fairies, but I do know that I'm writing about it now, and
yeah,
it's like, um, I do know that like it probably is influencing like my writing for sure and my life. But
I,
yeah, that's a super random topic for
yeah,
sure.
it's like we've probably talked for like 5 or 6 hours since like we first started talking like throughout progressively. I just don't get like the like impression. I could be wrong. I just don't get the impression that you're like this person who's kind of covering up like a sense of, oh, I love the torment. Like, oh, I love the bad energy. Like you're an energy vampire. Like I don't get that vibe. So it's like I don't think that's it. I think it's just something
Yeah.
that like a unconscious level that we all possess in a sense. And I think you're just able to like I think a lot of people are able to tap into that, because everyone uses different things for different influences and shit. Not everybody, I
Mhm.
mean, the gym. How many people go to the gym because they sincerely just like love going? A lot of people, but how many go because they're bottling up and fighting like demons? They're fighting things. They're fighting a heartbreak or depression or anger or frustration, bad day at work. A lot of fucking people. And like not everything you tap into that comes out beautiful when it's created has to come from a place of beauty. Like sometimes the darkest Wes Craven, he's a horror director. He recently passed, and well, he didn't recently. It was like last couple of years, but he did Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, The Hills Have Eyes, People Under the Stairs. He did great films, but he never watched a single movie aside from a Disney movie until he was in college
Yeah.
because he wasn't allowed to. Then when he did, he realized, I'm paraphrasing him what he said, but he realized in a level that he had this all inside of him the whole time, but he was groomed and conditioned to suppress it down. When he was exposed to cinema, it reopened something for him. You hear this guy talk, he sounds like the most passive guy you've ever heard. But the films he's making are so grotesque and scary and like sickening sometimes, like Nightmare on Elm Street, there's a part where a guy gets sucked into a bed and then he explodes into a fountain of blood. It's like someone who's that nice came up with that. So it's like,
Yeah.
no matter, I just feel like, I don't know, like, but it's a master.
Mm.
My reason for saying it is because beauty can come out of dark places. I think that's kind of what this could be. Again,
Yeah.
I am not a therapist. I'm not a historian of psychology. I just love this shit. But so if I'm out of line,
Uh-huh.
don't like go to a therapist and be like, well, I heard this and I think that's what it is. It's not medical advice. Uh,
I love that so much though. Like, I mean, obviously that is a nicer perspective for me to think at and look at, is to be like, somehow something beautiful will come out of this, and how it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I don't know how things work, man.
who does?
I
If
don't
someone
know.
tells you they do, they're fucking lying, man.
Yeah, I just know that I'm gonna be honest about it.
Hell yeah.
That's that's the in my book of morals, that's the best thing that you can do, is to be honest about it. So I'm that's I think that is part of what influences some of my more sinister writing, because I mean I have been writing like this piece where there is like a horrible witch, and she tortures this hunter, and in it, I actually sat and meditated until I had tapped into my very first memory ever. And so in the story, I'm describing this witch like shoving like fistfuls of pine cones and things into this hunter's mouth, and it's like ripping his cheeks open. And it's like she's getting ecstasy from it, she's getting
Yeah.
ecstasy from listening to his heart frantically beat and watching him sweat and suffocate. And I genuinely sat and pulled that from this memory that I had as a 3-year-old, where I enjoyed watching fairies suffer. And again, that's something that I've hidden and been ashamed of, extremely ashamed of, like my whole life, because I mean, one, that's bizarre, and two, it's just so evil. But I mean, I think maybe some good writing will come out of it at least.
Yeah, I mean, man, with we're beings. At the bottom line is we have temptation. We have not desires to kill fairies. I assure you, people probably fucking do. But like people have like we're very symmetrical things. There's a lot of intricate parts going on in this symmetrical fucking thing vessel we're in or whatever.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, if I've sat here and told you some weird thoughts I've had in my past, like people would be like, this guy's fucking crazy. It's like,
Mm.
that's how it is. It's, yeah, man, I don't think I ever had one with killing fairies, but, I've had weird ones. I'll tell you that. But like, yeah, it's, now, do you look at yourself as the witch in this exact scenario when you're writing this? Like you said, you kind of meditate to get in the mindset. Because um, never to the extent you have, because you're fucking doing it. I've like dabbled with this like type with writing like minor stuff, and when you do it, like I've like put myself in the mentality of people, and it's
Yeah.
like it's almost. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. But do you do that type of thing?
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. I mean, I my my characters are like, well, first of all, I think they're still developing. I think as a fiction writer, I would tell myself that I'm still kind of a learning writer. Although that may be, maybe that's not true. Maybe my characters are fine. But I don't. I put myself in their shoes, but they're not me, for sure. Even though obviously it's like, oh, all the characters are me. Um, Weirdly, I would have thought that they would be more me than they are, but they're usually actually not.
How do
Um,
you manage to? I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm so sorry. I
no,
just
I'm
cut you
done.
off at such a
Yeah.
bad time. How do you manage to distinctualize the fact that you can be in the shoes but not be them? Because I can get it from an observational standpoint where I'm watching someone else's expression of art. But if I'm personally engaging and creating this out of thin air, I don't know if I can. I know for a fact I can't in some scenarios. I can't distinctualize myself from the character. Like, I can put myself in the shoes, but I always end up snapping back in reality and be like, yo, fuck me. Like, I was just there for a minute. Like, that, there was no, like, I was writing, but I was writing as if I was the person. Like, I can see my handwriting change sometimes. Like, it'll get more like, not like Yeah, but I don't know. Like it was just like visual
Yeah.
things where I'll be like, Jesus, I was in like a trance state where I was kind of like in that role for a second. How do you like
Yeah.
not do that then?
Um, hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's just part of uh my form of storytelling, I guess. So I'm kind of more of a like um setting type of person, or like when it comes to my writing, like I'm kind of more focused on setting, and then I'm also really focused on kind of like the philosophy of things. So it's almost like my mindset's not entirely based on the character, and that may be something again that will develop in my writing. um and don't get me wrong, there are definitely times when I am the character. There are definitely times when like I am in that point of view. Like for example, with this witch, it's actually based off this story is like based off of like the Baba Yaga, which is like that ancient legend of that witch. But for the most part, I'm not her. Yeah, I'm very much like telling the story of her, um, except for the part when she's killing the hunter, in which case I took it really, really personal and became her. And basically, but I still wasn't her. I just channeled like the emotions. And then, I don't know, I guess I was her. I became her, but I wasn't like me. I don't know. It's just, I guess it is a type of like disconnect. Maybe I have multiple personality disorder. Maybe I'm able to just like snap off. I don't know.
It's interesting because obviously I feel like I'm probably the oddity. If I asked 1,000 writers the same question, they'd probably all be like, give a similar answer. We're like, yeah, I put myself in their shoes, but I don't see myself as them. So you're kind of like the person I who got stuck with here in the question that I've been wondering my whole life. But like, it's so interesting how like approaches to these things can differ from person, and it's cool how
Yeah.
how you're self aware to the fact that you can switch in and out, especially when it comes to like the witch and the hunter, the gruesome part of it, where you're like, oh, I kind of snap in there. You
Yeah.
know, that's an interesting. It's even cooler that you're self aware of it too. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. You have to kind of play God, you know?
Yeah.
You become like the god of that universe. That's the only way to
Wow.
really tell a story, is you have to become the god of that universe.
Dog, that's like top three quotes ever said on this podcast right there.
Shut
That's
up.
nah, you gotta become the god of that universe. Like, man,
Yeah. You gotta have that big dick
that's
energy, you know?
intense. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's intense. Fuck, man. Okay, so what's your writing style like? Are you like traditional, or do you like just go in knowing the whole story and fill in the gaps? Do you a Stephen King where you have an idea and then you just unfold the whole story as you're writing it and kind of learn in real time? How do you like to do your stuff?
Definitely the second one, definitely more like Stephen King. It's definitely like I'll have like a vague idea and then I just write and whatever comes of it. But the thing about um so like the way that I see it with writing is like you're tapping into the reason that anything is even able to manifest onto paper is because you're tapping into this like field of energy that already exists, and you're basically channeling. So you basically when you're writing, like, yeah, it's you and you're thinking of it, but the best writing is the writing that seems to write itself.
Yeah.
Like when you start getting stuck and you're having to like calculate it and mathematically think about it, it's like you can absolutely churn something out that way, but that writing that really twists and bends well, um, is going to be that writing that you're like you can feel it, you can recognize where it's coming from, but it kind of almost, you know, when you reread it, for me at least, sometimes when I reread my good stuff, um, I'll be like, holy shit, like, how did I write that? Like, and
Yeah.
that sounds so conceited because I've definitely written stuff where I'm like, delete it, destroy it, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But when it's good, it's not even coming from me. It's literally from like um What was the question? I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. Well, it related it. It took a little tangent, but great answer to the question either way. I love that type of shit. Um, what the fuck was the how do you like go about writing the? We're a bunch of professionals over here at this talking thing. Um,
Hmm.
how do you go about the structure of a story? Do you have an initial idea, or do you have the whole thing kind of laid out and then you fill in the gaps from there? Like, how do you like to approach it?
As far as structure goes, I have as little as possible, to be honest. Again, it's more like the Stephen King approach. Like, I'll basically just have kind of like an idea, and it's usually pretty vague. More than anything, I have more of a feeling of how I want the story to feel. And then from there, I will literally just start writing until it's like sometimes I'll just start writing until a scene plays out, just like randomly. And then that scene will tell me what's next in order to start um, creating more of a skeletal structure for the plot. So it is very kind of like going with the wind.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it usually ties up in the end, I think.
So is that how you went with the same exact approach for the which one? You just kind of you let it kind of fall in type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like for the which one, for example, I think I said before, like I'm more of a settings kind of writer. Like I'm more of like the setting and the philosophy rather than I am like the actual character. Um, so, for example, like with the beginning of the story of the Baba Yaga, it's describing like the house, and it's describing like it stomping through the forest and how the house is like tired because it's lived for like thousands and thousands of years and nothing can destroy it, and how
Right.
it's kind of like not impressed when the Baba Yaga is like gruesomely killing somebody inside because it's seen it so many times and it just wants to sleep. So and so I like to give life to the setting around the character and make almost my characters almost feel obsolete, um, which is not very common, I don't think. But I like to drown the character out with like ideas and the setting rather than the story of their adventure. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah.
I'm gonna hyper focus on something that I probably shouldn't, and people are gonna be like, "Why the fuck's he caring about this?" With the house in particular, is that a metaphor for something, or is that like a direct description of like the actual house, or is it like kind of like what is that about?
So like in this story of like the Baba Yaga, like the house just has a consciousness. Like
Oh,
it's
okay,
enchanted
gotcha.
because yeah. I don't know if you're familiar with like the story of the Baba Yaga, but she's like a witch that lives in the forest, and the house walks on chicken legs and stomps through the forest. So I decided to make the house itself like a living consciousness, as well as the chicken legs themselves, which is kind of interesting. Like they're equally alive, but yeah.
Crazy. Okay, yeah, I was way off then. Okay, cool. Cause I assumed the house was just like a house, but you were using it as like a kind of cover up for someone else's like internal feelings about what's going on or something. Maybe there was like a slave or a cat or something. Like I don't know. That's dope. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I was thinking cat because was Hocus Pocus. I forget Max. That cat. I love that movie. But I was thinking like in particular, I was imagining those witches. And I was like, I wonder if he's talking about like a little animal that she keeps as like a slave pet thing or something. Who's like fed up with his bullshit. That's
That's
fire.
kind of the chicken legs,
Yeah.
but
Oh, if I had to
yeah.
support a house on chicken legs, yeah, I'd be a little pissed off too. I don't blame him. Yeah. Um, that's crazy. So, what was your original? I don't want to spoil your actual concept for the thing. So please, if you dance around anything, you have to.
Mhm.
What was your original idea when this came to you to like start working on this in particular project? Was it like the story of the Baba Yaga itself?
Basically, there was just a competition out that was like, and I think that's kind of where I work best too. Well, I mean, I'll get to that, but there was a competition out for like a story about the Baba Yaga, which is like this ancient I think it's Russian. I should really know,
It
but
sounds Russian.
it's yeah, it's an ancient legend about this witch, and it's like sometimes she's nice and sometimes she's not, and she rides in a bucket in the sky. And so they just were looking for like a new variation of that story. And long story short, my story was really long and I wasn't able to finish it in time to submit, but
Yeah.
I had written so much of it and I really actually kind of like it. So I'm just still writing. It's like 20 pages, 25 pages at the moment. And I kind of am at a point where I have to just extend it and make it into like a little tiny book because it's too big for a lot of competitions and it's so specifically themed that
Yeah.
I just feel like it might be best if I finish it as a book. But I do really well if I do really well if I am given just like a topic and like no other context, just like write about the Baba Yaga or write about, whatever aliens. I tend to spiral into these awesome stories if I can have just a little bit of, um, I like to be told what to do a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll push to get you going and then just
Yeah.
pedal away. That's what's up. Well,
Yeah.
that sucks for that freaking publication that missed out on that because of the deadline. Because this sounds like it's gonna be freaking sick. Just based off the actual thing about the house having the feelings, instantly I was like, oh shit, like yeah, that caught me. That caught me right
Oh,
there.
thank you.
Oh hell yeah, hell yeah. And just for reference for people, if like 20, some people might be able to 25 pages. Man, like if that was like a transcript for like a film, that's like 25 minutes, you know? So like just put that in context with people. Like 25 pages is like that's not easy to just bang out. Like it takes time,
Yeah.
to fill 25 pages of something, and then realize you need more time, more pages. That's crazy. Like I feel like a lot I
Yeah.
wouldn't understand that a couple like years ago, whatever. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, well, that's easy." But that's challenging right there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, this might be surprising to hear, but it's actually the longest I've written, which feels discrediting to be honest, because it's like I should have at least written like 100 pages by now, but it's like I just do short stories, and this one might actually like turn into a little book, which is exciting. But yeah, it's been fun.
Hell yeah. Well, do you have any plans on like how long of a book you think this was? Or you said mini little book, but do you have like an estimate of how much pages you're gonna need for all the context of the whole story to unfold, or is it still kind of progressing as we go, as you kind of said before? It might have been a stupid question because you kind of said you just kind of go with the flow in a sense, but
Yeah, I mean, this one could surprise me. I think there's like two different options for this particular story. It's like I'm either going to wrap it up in the next like 10 pages. So it'd be like 10 more pages. And then it would be like, a short novella to submit to like a longer writing contest. Or it's going to go all out and turn into like maybe like 125 page small book, just a really little one. But I mean, I don't know. Really don't know.
yeah, I guess just gotta kind of see where the story takes you. It's a
Yeah.
sound
Yeah.
corny as fuck, but yeah, Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
so is this the first kind of like this seems kind of like a horror thriller type of thing, I assume, considering it's a hunter getting fucked up by a witch.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, it is kind of a horror. I just like to add like a lot of pretty stuff to my horror.
Okay.
Am I still on the screen
Yeah,
when
you're
I'm like,
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, sorry. Let's see if I can pull it up.
So that's interesting why you do that. Pretty things to horror. You mean like aesthetically pleasing pretty things like over glamify the setting in a sense, or
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I like to have I like to have kind of balance in my writing, so things are as hopefully as pretty as they are terrifying. So like I'm not really into writing stories where it's like just specifically horror or just specifically something terrifying. It's like I like to have like it kind of bittersweet and poetic in that it's like actually a really gorgeous story, but it's like not safe for your mom to read. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's real
So,
interesting. I'm trying to think of like a comparison for that, but I don't even outside my head. I don't know if I can. That's a interesting approach. Did you kind of come up with that like from some get influence from somebody else saying that thing, or did you like as you were kind of writing this, be like, oh, I think I'm gonna add a spin to this?
just like in, do you mean in terms of like the prettiness versus the ugliness
Yeah, yeah. Sorry,
of the story?
I literally didn't explain the question at all. Yeah, like the build up of like how you said like, oh, so like you could still be scared, but like your mom could co watch, or no, vice versa, your mom wouldn't want to watch it, type of thing. But like it looks good.
Um, just personally, like it takes a lot for me to watch or read something that's like really scary or really violent or something like that. Um, without it being balanced with like some horribly sad but beautiful poetic underlining. Like for me, that justifies the absolute disgustingness of it. Because, I mean, in the story, I go into like really graphic detail about how this witch rips apart this young hunter who's like a good guy coming looking for his sister. And I mean, she just like, she basically has like an orgasm. Like, I don't straight out say it,
Yeah.
but I'm describing how she's just getting off of him suffering. And again, it's like, you know, some weird Freudian things going on here, but
Just imagine it's her mom or something, as fucking Freud would point out.
yes, no.
Weird ass Freud, man. That's
But
yeah, that's interesting. So you kind of dance around in the fact that she's kind of extremely sadistic with the whole like obviously if she's ripping a human apart, obviously she's sadistic, but there's more of an underlying tone of like you said earlier, like an ecstasy she kind of gets from it, right?
yeah, yeah, it's like I want to be able to almost groom the audience into this mindset that she might have a point, or I don't know. Uh it's like nature is really beautiful, you know, but at the same time, and I fully believe this, nature is like absolutely horrifying and disgusting and just ruthless. And that's who like this Baba Yaga character is. But again, I don't go so much into the character as much as I go into like the philosophy or the ideas of it. And so it's like the whole philosophy of it is that like nature is beautiful, but nature is also like absolutely horrendous and um, unforgiving and cruel. So it's like the Baba Yaga herself, she's the guardian. According to legend, she's the guardian of the water, and so it's like she's supposed to be here protecting the very thing that's keeping humans alive. But at the same time, she's like feasting on humans. So I try to balance it with like I don't know, both horror and with like a softness of you know describing the forest and describing like the house is actually really friendly and like the chicken legs are really young and yeah, it's still a developing story though. But
That's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I'm not trying to ask like direct questions. I'm trying to kind of dance around it so I don't like put you in a position where you're like no comment.
Oh.
I've never had anyone say no comment. I don't want to start now. That's my goal. This whole podcast is for no one to like be like no comment. That's an awkward thing when I hear people say that shit. Um, do you look for these things like this sort of tone of nature and kind of lessons in a sense in other works like aside from your own, like if you read or if if you watch something, do you look for these like on a conscious level?
Yeah, absolutely. um I would, yeah, I so I think like for me, I'm not always reading to entertain myself, even though I am. Even in science fiction or in um, fantasy, it's like I think I'm dramatic, and so to me, the mark of a good author is somebody who the whole time has been taking you on this journey so that they can like butt fuck you with this like stunning philosophy
Yeah, yeah.
in the end. And it's like it might not even be so obvious, but you at least should be able to walk away with like this resounding feeling of like, huh, wow, I see things like kind of different, and that's kind of fucked up, or like wow, that's kind of sad, or something like that.
Do you know what you credit that like taste for? Like, do you know? Can you like pinpoint when that started, or is it kind of just always been kind of there in you?
I think that's my soul,
Yeah.
honestly. I think I'm kind of a little philosopher at heart, and
Yep.
um, I'm a big fan of like the dramatics. So like so for example, like when I read Twilight as like a 12-year-old, I always thought that the first book should have ended with Bella dying. I like that. Like I always thought that that would have made for maybe a better story, because the message that it would have left is that maybe if you do love somebody, you do leave them alone, because like your lust and your passion for them
Yeah.
can actually kill them. So when I was reading at the end of the book, my sadistic ass, so dramatic, was genuinely like, oh, it would be so beautiful if she died. Like, it just that would have been so good.
Yeah.
It's like Romeo and Juliet, but I also hate that. But yeah,
Have you seen the new Top Gun movie?
that's so funny. I almost went and saw it yesterday.
Okay,
No,
never mind then. I'll move on because I was gonna say something about like kind of similar, but I don't want to. I don't. Yeah.
was
Okay.
it good though?
It was interesting. I don't really like the first one, which is odd because I love '80s movies. So I feel no, that wasn't '80s. That was fucking like '90s. Maybe that's why I don't like it. 'Cause it's not an '80s movie. But I don't really like the original that much. But it was good. Visually, man. Oh my god, it
It
was.
looked stunning.
Watch it in the movies. That's all I'm gonna say. If you're gonna watch it, you gotta like dish out the money to the AMC overlords because it's worth it.
Yeah.
Um, but okay, yeah, I don't want to. Maybe all right. If you end up watching the movie, let me know, and I'll remember this exact conversation. And I'll tell you what I was gonna compare it to. Um, basically, yeah, I said basically. So I was gonna continue to say what I was gonna say. That's crazy though. Now, I feel that in a different kind of sense when it comes to like looking for that type of stuff. I don't really look for like the same aspect that you do. I like it with the psychological aspect thing to it, especially horror. Like
Yeah.
any type of movie, but horror in particular. There's this movie called Oculus. It's by this guy Mike Flanagan, who is the one of the greatest horror directors that I've ever seen in my life. Do you want to pause it for a second while you do what you gotta do?
Oh, yeah. I'm just gonna plug it in
Yeah,
real
no worries.
quick.
We'll pause it up.
Sorry.
We'll pause it up real quick. We'll be right back, folks. And we are recording again. Okay, I used that break as an opportunity to use the restroom, guys. My apologies. So yeah, I like psychological stuff as you like. You're kind of this kind of my domain. The kind of similar, I guess, because it's kind of about like humanity and like the unit, like the realizations and like underlying messages. Probably differs because I just like seeing like fucked up people like turn at the blink of an eye and seeing a character unfold. But I just like the psyche mind of people because it's so interesting. Um, but Oculus in particular, I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
It's okay. If anyone doesn't want to have the movie spoiled, just like skip a minute, obviously. But do you care if I say it? I don't. Yeah, I'm gonna say
Yeah.
it.
Go for
Okay,
it.
cool. I didn't want to like spoil it for anybody. I don't like being that guy. It's an old movie, but I don't know why. But okay, fucking there's these two people, a brother and a sister, and the whole movie is basically them going to war with a mirror. And the mirror is responsible for an ungodly amount of debts associated with the mirror. It's cursed or possessed, or there's an entity attached to it. And a lot of the whole movie's psychological. First of all, the brother is taken out, released from a mental facility because he went crazy because of his childhood in the house with the mirror. The sister, also because the dad killed the mother And it was just a whole thing. Like the family was just, it was fucking weird. The thing was possessing the father, and he was like tormenting the mother, making her like a weird fucking creature slave thing, whatever. But the whole movie is basically just them going to battle with this thing in a very strategic way, where they set up like devices in case like anything goes wrong. This giant axe will swing down and crush the mirror. So like if they die, like that's their last resort. You know, like if they don't reset a timer every so often, something they call like the boyfriend of the sister, so we know something went wrong. But the whole movie is flashbacks of like their childhood, and when it flashes back to present day, you don't know what's real and what's not, because it'll be like very disoriented, and the people, they'll have no idea what's going on, and then they'll snap back into it and be like, what the fuck just happened? Like, oh, 30 minutes passed, I don't remember doing anything. They'll look at the recording and they just sit there and stare at the wall for 30 minutes, but like it's like they were doing real shit when we saw it. So it's like, terrible explanation of a great movie. Please, people, watch that movie and do not base it off that explanation. But you know, I just like that shit where you're always like thinking about it. Like I like mindless movies too, but it doesn't have to be hard. Like I like things where you think about. Like that's why I like documentaries and shit too, because it's like it is psychological in a sense. Because like, you know, especially if it's about people or events, you're putting yourself in the mindset of the said people and shit like that. That stuff always interests me. I don't know how I brought that up before we paused it, but I felt like I started and I was like, I can't just not finish it because it would sound bad, but I wish I just didn't say it at this point.
No, it was just like, because we were talking about, like my style of writing is the, kind of, I'm like more into like philosophy and the ideas. And so it's like more of the not the thriller. What is that? Just kind of the psychological aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess they kind of go hand in hand. You know, when you get philosophical or psychological, you know, you can kind of find common ground with sociology and shit like that. So yeah, they definitely flirt with one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the Stoics in the past, you know, they're very psychological people. You know, you look at like, I can't think of one on the top of my head. You know, I can't think of a Stoic on top of my head. You think of those people like the philosophers and shit. They're always very introspective and really self-aware of their own understanding and being, and you know, the people around them and stuff. So it always goes really hand in hand. It's all people oriented, but
yeah.
So when you watch movies, do you like look at it? How am I gonna phrase this? So if you read a book, obviously being someone who writes, you probably, you know, have it in a very vivid idea of your head of what the author's trying to portray, and it really connects with you. Is it the same level when you watch like a video format of a story? Like, do you still connect on that level, or is it something different?
Well, it just depends on if that's what the director's intent and the author of the movie, if that's what their intention is. You know, I feel like I haven't been to the movies in like a really long time because so many of the movies that are coming out are just, you know, dollar grabs, and they're kind of filler movies where, you know, it's a lot of action and not a lot of any messages or meaning and like kudos to people who can just like, I'm not dissing on it necessarily, because kudos to people who just go to see a movie to enjoy a fucking movie. You know, they're going to be entertained. But personally, you know, I like a movie that comes at you with a twist, philosophical thing. And I think that's why, like, I get like a lot of hate for this, but like M. Night Shyamalan is actually one of my favorite directors. Okay. I know that's like controversial.
Okay.
And I do think he absolutely ruined Avatar. We don't talk about it, but
yeah. Can you explain that a little bit, please? Because that's a tough take for me.
All right.
I'm open-minded though. I'm open-minded, but please.
No. And I don't plan on convincing you, but I do want to at least allow you to see where I'm coming from. Okay.
Okay. I'm open-minded to it. Let's hear it. Okay.
This is getting worse than the girl who talked to you about flat Earth, right? You're like off my show right now.
Oh yeah. Shout out her. Okay. Anyways. Yeah. Okay.
No. So. Let's take, for example, the movie Signs. Like, have you seen the movie Signs?
That's the exception that I look at it and I'm like, that's a fucking phenomenal movie with phenomenal acting, great directing.
Right. And I love Joaquin Phoenix. Oh my
He's
gosh,
great
biggest
in
girl
that.
crush.
Yes. Obviously, Mel Gibson's
But
very good in everything, but Hakeem in that, yeah, it's fucking good performance.
yeah. But so Signs, for example, it's like the entire title, for example, of the movie, and this is M. Night's style that I love so much, like genuinely. And like I've seen a couple of his movies where they're not so good, like admittedly, but take for example Signs. So like the title of it is the biggest smack in the face because when you think of like signs, so he's already getting into a metaphor here because you're thinking like, oh, aliens, crop signs. That's the very beginning of the movie. So I love that as well. I love it when um, the author or the director kind of lies to you. I like to be lied to, you know? So he's telling you like this movie is called Signs because there are crop circles, right? And it's about aliens. But that's not why the movie is called Signs. It has absolutely nothing to do with the crop circles. The reason that the movie is called Signs, and again, this is spoilers if you haven't seen the movie Signs. Really good movie, you should
If
see.
you
But
haven't, you're fucking bugging. But yeah.
um, it's the priest, you know, the main character, he no longer believes in God. He no longer believes in synchronicities or in signs. But in the very at the very end of the movie, the alien is like trying to kill the son with like the poison, but the son has an asthma attack before it happens, and so the poison can't get in, and it's just like this miracle. Anyway, so he takes that as a sign. So he starts believing in like signs again. So I kind of like I appreciate that. Like I appreciate the um obvious layer of a movie where it's like, oh, it's about this when the entire time it's like just about like a pastor regaining his faith. Even though I'm not religious, I thought that was well done. Um, what about like The Sixth Sense? Have you seen that?
Tough take. I know this isn't a popular. Not a fan of the movie. I'm really not. I
Really?
know it's a tough take. I have a lot of controversial takes on film, and I get shit on every time I talk about film with anybody. But yeah, like for me, like this is for reference. The Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio. Wholeheartedly love the movie. I think it's a
Mm,
great movie, and I use that as reference because I've never once in my life heard someone say that it was a decent movie. Nonetheless, it's a good one. I fucking love it though. So like
mm,
that's a 10 out of 10 for me. But like yeah, that's just I don't not a fan of Sixth Sense. It's creepy
yeah.
sometimes, you know, like I think the kid actor is pretty good, but that's the best part of the movie for me.
What about like The Village or Split?
What's the second one? Sorry.
Split?
Did he do Split?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's the open-mindedness right there because that's not a bad film. That's the one with the guy with the multiple personalities, right? And then
hmm
Samuel Jackson's in it too.
I don't know. I'm really bad with actor
Maybe it's a
names.
different one. I know he's the bald guy, right? He played Charles
Mr.
Xavier.
Tumnus.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Yeah.
said
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah.
He's Mr. Tumnus, yeah.
Not a bad movie. Not a great one for me, but not a bad one. I haven't seen The Village. I don't think though. Actually, I'll put that on the list.
Watch The Village. I like that one.
Okay.
Basically, and like it feels so bad to say because it's kind of like saying that you like the Twilight books. You know what I mean? Like it's social suicide and it's not popular, but I love M. Night Shyamalan. And the way that he styles his movies, where again, it's like you think it's about this, but really there's like this sad, messed up psychological meaning behind it. I like that. I like looking way too deep into things, so I can appreciate that type of mirage. The way he does that.
Yeah, it's an interesting approach when you kind of disguise one thing as another thing. With Signs, it's like, okay, yeah, it's an alien movie at the surface, but you know, like you said, you delve deeper. It's a man rediscovering his faith and belief in something after a
Right?
tragic event, you know, that makes him not believe in any of it anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually interesting that you said that, you have the sheriff coming around and talking to the priest, Mel Gibson's character. and she's the one who kind of brings up, if I remember, she's the one who initiates the actual memory that we first realized that his wife died.
Hmm.
So that's more of like a not subtle sign of like the actual theme of the thing, but that's interesting how he kind of snuck that in there in that way. That's a good style of putting it in there. It wasn't forced really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen Old?
Haven't. No.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'll have a different opinion if you see that movie. I don't know. I
Is it
had
M
a
Night Shyamalan?
Yeah, I had to talk myself. I'm not gonna. I don't want to word this wrong. I had to talk myself out of becoming suicidal while watching the movie. I was really struggling to watch it. Like, it was bad. Like, I was sitting there just pausing it and out loud to myself, just saying, "What the fuck is going on right now?"
Really?
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. It was very yeah, it was weird. Again, I'm biased because of that one movie alone. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't even have the worst opinion of the guy, because he has,
Yeah.
obviously, I can respect The Sixth Sense. I can. I love Signs. Great movie. I'll have to check out The Village. Split's not bad. I didn't realize he fucking did that till right now, but yeah, that movie has burned a memory that is gonna be really hard to replace in my mind for him. He's working on a movie right now,
Oh,
if I'm not
yeah.
mistaken, but
I remember seeing like the ad for Old, like the trailer,
yeah.
and thinking like I don't want to see that.
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's weird.
So like, I feel like people like M Night Shyamalan, like he's not. I wouldn't go into his movies looking for um, a thriller, even
hmm
or a horror, or even though like they are, they're not. Like you're not. Well, I don't think it. I don't think it's very like classically structured um, thriller or horror. I think if you're going into M Night Shyamalan, you have to be asking yourself, okay, what's the twist? Like the entire time.
Okay.
That's kind of the angle. It's not so much going to be. I don't. It's just a whole different mood. It's a whole different vibe. But I think a lot of people go in wanting that because that's what they signed up for, because that's how the movie's advertised. But it's just not really his style. His style is more like, oh, what's the meaning behind it, and the rest is kind of fluff, to be honest.
I feel like, have you seen the movie The Lighthouse?
Uh-uh.
Oh, I feel like it's with Robert Patterson and the guy who played Green Goblin, William Dafoe, and they're two lighthouse keepers who are stationed to watch over the lighthouse. It was advertised as like a horror thriller, but bro, it's fucking really makes you think. I feel like you'd like it a lot. It's very, very psychological, and it's like just these guys stuck on a lighthouse for a while, and they're just going through what you would expect people stuck on a lighthouse would go through when they, a lot of
Yeah.
twists, a lot of like, oh fuck, like what, like yeah, like highly recommend that. I feel like you'd enjoy that if you like that type of stuff.
Yeah. I'll have to look at that.
Um, so who do you reference as like your inspirations when it comes to coming up with ideas? Do you have any like role model
Mm.
figures, whether it's like film or author based?
Um. Um. I do love. I think it's Stephen King's like how he churns books out, and like he just kind of like,
Crazy.
yeah. I don't even necessarily like read his books or even watch a lot of his movies, although like I obviously give like props to him, like he's a legend and a genius. But I do highly respect that kind of attitude of like, you get an idea, you write it down. Like there's, and he'll completely just like write it out until there's a story, until it's done. And then he starts another. And that's kind of like, that's kind of a dream because I'm very impatient and I'm very results based, and it would be freaking awesome to just go insane and write out every single idea that I ever have. So maybe him.
That's a good
But
one.
yeah.
I mean, you can't really aim much higher than Stephen King. If it's just, not even the genre, just the workload alone, like you said, it's not even measurable.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, you'd have to really indulge in a cocaine use if you want to be Stephen King though, because yeah, he did a lot of coke for a lot of books, which is
hey, but that
worked.
makes sense though.
Yeah, do you know what Cujo is? The one about the dog.
Uh-uh.
It's basically just a book that was made into a movie, and it's just about a dog, and he's the main antagonist. He doesn't recall writing the book.
Oh
The whole
no.
book, he doesn't remember any of it. He just wrote a fucking great book and had no recollection of it because he was so fucked up. Between
Wow.
drugs and lack of sleep, he just banged it out, and it was just like he's like I don't know how I did it. I just did it. It was just like it's
That's
crazy.
amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. The amount of classics that guy has is probably one of the greatest resumes I can ever even fathom. We could
Yeah.
sit here for 4 hours and list off the list of the laundry list, but it's insane.
Hmm.
It's yeah, it's a great. So is that like the you don't take away writing styles from him though, I assume, or is it's more just like the work ethic, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, like I admire that work ethic, and I think like obviously there would be more physical results if I were to do things that way. And like I have a book of his on writing, so it's like I kind of like look up to that idea. But I also have a book on writing by Orson Scott Card, um, who did the Ender's Game.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So and his is completely different. So his style is like you have an idea and you let it sit and marinate until you have an entire world for possibly 10 years. Like, and he has a lot less books, hundreds of less books. But I mean, Ender's Game was kind of the biggest fucking deal of his time, I'd say, just as an uneducated guess. But yeah, so right now, I mean, I'm kind of juggling between those two, where it's like, so basically where I found the balance is like I've written down every idea I have, and then I do wait until there's some movement behind it before I like start writing.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Do you ever do multiple projects at once, or do you find it overwhelming to do like something like that?
I find it overwhelming not to. Like
Wow. Okay.
I definitely do multiple at the same time. That way when I get a little bit sick of like this planet that I'm writing about, I can jump over here and write
Wow.
about this witch, and you know what I mean?
That's really interesting. So you're just really always like fully submerged into one of these worlds that you kind of projecting onto into the universe from your own mind. Like that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I have ADD, so it's just naturally how I work.
That'll help.
And it
Yeah, that'll
yeah.
help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe don't take the Adderall one day when you're really feeling it, and it'll fall into place.
Dude, I almost mentioned that earlier when you're talking about Stephen King and all of his writing on cocaine. I'm like, because I was prescribed Adderall in like junior high and stuff. And man, if I had Adderall right now, I would have a couple books, I think. It might be a good idea to get on some Adderall, except for it's meth, so I wouldn't.
Yeah.
But
If I was still on Adderall, this would be episode 9,000 of the podcast so far. So that would be cool. But it's interesting. Do you like using any substances, whether it's caffeine, marijuana, anything like? Does that exemplify any aspects of writing, or does it have any setbacks at the same time? If you do.
I haven't really experimented too much with it, to be honest. I did a lot of good writing in like high school when I was on Concerta. So like that is a much milder form of like, Adderall, Ritalin, Concerta,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? So I do feel like ADD medication can help, but I'm no longer on any medication. So none of that. I feel like I have to have caffeine in order to write. So like my coffee. I want to try whiskey. I want to sip whiskey and
Mm.
write. But yeah.
A nice on the rocks fucking aged thing of bourbon. Yeah, I could. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is bourbon
Yep.
whiskey? That's whiskey, right?
Oh, girl, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm a sober man nowadays. My days are over. I don't know. Yeah. That's interesting. I know when I try to like, if I like smoke weed, like I'm a little stoned right now. If I try to write right now, I feel like I'd be good. But if I like sat down and like face the joint or something and try to actually write, like I don't know. I can't, I know I can't do it effectively in my own mind because I start like second guessing everything I write and I get too anal about the details. But like the
Mm,
creativity's there, but like, but then I hear Stephen King say he writes books. He used to write books off coke and finish a book in 3 days. It's like, what the fuck, you know?
yeah.
Or Hunter S. Thompson, one of the greatest examples ever of being a fucking, shout out to him, but being a drug addict essentially, and just fucking putting out crazy masterpieces every time he did it. I mean,
Yeah.
George Orwell was a heavy drinker, I'm pretty sure. You know, fucking he gave us Animal Farm, he gave us 84. There's definitely something to like using substances to an advantage, I feel like, for creativity.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm definitely interested in exploring that. I'm not straight edge, you know. I would definitely be interested in experimenting to see where my, you know, spot is. Like for example, with stand-up comedy, for me, it's like 2 or 3 beers, perfect level. Like usually like two and a half beers, and I'm like, good. I can go on stage. I'm killing it, you know, at least in my mind, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's
so
funny.
there's got to be
Yeah.
something writing.
That's funny. I'm sitting in my notes right now. I have like a 10-minute stand-up routine set that I wrote out for this open mic I was going to sign up for, and I didn't finish in time, and it's just been sitting there for like a month now. It's just funny you said that because it's like, man, that's weird. Small world type of thing, like, you know?
Do it.
Interesting.
It's
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna get canceled. That's the problem. It's a lot of vegan jokes, but yeah. um, fuck. Interesting. So your process it doesn't include substances primarily, aside from caffeine. But obviously caffeine's not like a fucking. But I just labeled it because it'll boost you. It'll give you something. Does like scenery or environment play a part in like any of your writing?
Yeah, so I think I do my best writing at like a coffee shop.
Mm,
So I like to have like people around me. And like I like it if they're like having their own conversations, and I like the buzz of the atmosphere and
yeah.
just kind of being like, I'm at a coffee shop, so I am writing, you know? Um, yeah. So I'd say a coffee shop is probably the best environment for me.
So you're not the type of person who's gonna go to like a protest and bring out the old laptop and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna write it now."
Probably not.
Yeah, very good idea. Very good idea. No, that's a joke, but sometimes I'll be listening to this shit and it's like I listen to a lot of audiobooks and I'm always like, I wonder if this dude was like in a weird environment because he's like talking about weird right now. Like the way this is like structured and what he's saying, it's like, well, who's around him right now? Like no way this guy's just sitting in his office, just like casually sipping a cup of espresso. Like this guy must be in like Afghanistan in the middle of a war right now, just like fucking reporting. It's weird. Do you ever notice that? Like
Totally.
you can like do you ever like I might just be weird when I said it, but do you ever like put yourself in the shoes of the author and think about what their circumstance was like when they're writing something?
Um, yeah, yeah. I mean, right now I'm reading some Isaac Asimov, science fiction, so like the Foundation trilogy, and actually right now, it's a little bit off kilter to like his regular style. Like he's pretty solid and he's pretty um consistent. And right now it's like the way he's writing is a little bit off, ironically. So yeah, I almost wonder if he's like maybe like in between places, like on an airplane or a
Mm,
train or something, and he's kind of just like um kind of distracted almost.
yeah.
Because you can tell the difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I one of my favorite authors is this guy M. Scott Peck, and he was a psychologist. And I have like 4 or 5 books by him. They're all pretty different. One's about like exorcisms and like demonic influences in his clients that he recognized throughout his time, which is he's a very Catholic guy. I'm not, but it's very interesting. But then he has books where he just talks about like childhood development and stuff like that. Then the road less traveled, and he gets really into like early life and how it affects. And it's just like I wonder if when he wrote these things, like if it was because he had the burning passion to write about the subject and he just got immersed, or if it was situational in life that he was like something happened and it sparked the flame where he's like in the mindset of, okay, I got to write about these demonic possession cases now. I always think about that type of stuff when I read books.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool way to look at it because, like, they're people after all, like, this is a human who's writing this.
Well, I mean, that's part of what makes J.K. Rowling's story so fucking incredible. It's because it's like she's writing part of her story when she's like on the brink of homelessness, on a napkin in a coffee shop. It's like, I don't know, man, to have that kind of a world exist so vividly when you're that distracted in life. I mean, what an incredible being, honestly.
Yeah, it's got like goosebumps when you said that. It really is. It's like in the lowest part, there's part of her that was like still found a way to not let her full power go to, fatalistic, pessimistic approaches. She always had that glimmer of hope in some regard, clearly. And now she's made, fucking $10 billion probably. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Do you think about that when you're like aspirations for the future? Do you ever think about like, reaching a level where it's on a really wide commercial audience, or do you kind of like just let these ideas just go out and whatever happens? Like, what's your like end goal for yourself and your work?
So I wouldn't say like J.K. Rowling status, but I would say, yeah, I have known, and I'll say the word known since the first grade, that I would be a famous author. And I do believe that I will have a large scale audience and, books out there that are pretty big and, have a fan base and eventually are even adapted into movies in which I'll be like, I have to sit next to the director because I ain't gonna have them Twilight that shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah, to answer your question, I think that is also advice that I would give a writer or anybody with a dream, is that you have to be able to say out loud, yes, like I do want a large global whatever audience. This is my dream. I do believe I can have it. Because if you can't even say that, then, you got a long way to go. But yeah, since the first grade that I've known and that I would and I will.
A lot of gems being spit in this podcast on your part. This is good shit, man. Fucking that's a good mindset. Because a section of people will hear that and be like, look at this person, look at her, she's stuck up, she's, but that's the reality is, bro, like, if, like you said, perfect, if you can't, I'm going to paraphrase you, so forgive me, but if you can't, envision yourself saying these things, how the fuck are you expecting the universe and for other people to reciprocate it? I always say, if you don't have love for yourself, you're kind of ridiculous and naive for expecting to get it from other people. It's like building, wanting to build a skyscraper, but starting on the 5th floor, with no foundation, it's crazy. So that's good shit. Yeah. Start at your own pace. And it's going to be dope in 20 years. We're having this podcast and, you're on a plane to fucking Beijing or something and fucking, yeah, it's going to be like, yeah. I remember we talked about astral projection one time. Remember that?
Yeah, I'll come back on the podcast too. And like, I don't know who I'll be talking with. We'll have other famous people on the podcast as well. Next to me.
If the podcast never makes it, I got it in. I got 2 hours. Let's go. That's dope though. So like, does it overwhelm you thinking about something like that? Does it ever put pressure on you of like how your work is now? Because if that's your ultimate goal and I shouldn't even say goal, if that's your ultimate destiny, I think is a better approach. Does it ever overwhelm you or make you second guess what you're writing in the moment? Because there's going to be a paper trail that people can reflect back on.
Yeah. Excellent question. So I do think this all the time. And truly what I believe when I put out work now is that it's brilliant. And truly what I believe is that when I look back on my work 5-10 years, I'm going to want to vomit, like it's going to be like right now, my work is perfect for where I am right now, which is an amateur, which is, somebody who has talent, but has never written a book and only writes, kind of quirky, even almost a little bit awkward, like short stories that are still developing in character and structure and that philosophy that I always talk about. So, do they work for me right now? Like, are they getting published? Like, yeah, to some degree. And I believe in them and I'm grateful for them. But absolutely, I will look back in 5 or 10 years and go, oh my God, how did I even believe in myself? Because this sucks. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's the process. That's how it's going to, that's kind of how I look at myself as a person, It's
That's what I
like,
was getting at. I was like, that's just life, man. That's everything. If you can't see that progression, it's like you're staying stagnant. That's worse than declining in my mind.
yeah, yeah,
I'd rather decline than stay stagnant my whole life in something. Because if I decline, at least I know, like, okay, I gotta make a difference. I gotta do something to
right.
change it. That's
Yeah.
crazy. What is like your, the people in your life? How are they, reciprocating to your work? Did they read it? Do you kind of, shoot ideas back and forth with them? How does that whole process take place?
So I mean, like since the first grade, I've kind of had like a pen and a notebook in my hand, and I've been like, um, writing journal pieces or short stories or surveys or whatever. So I've kind of unintentionally branded myself as like the author or the girl who writes all the time. So it's no surprise to them. Like in high school, we had like this. These 5 different competitions, and I actually won like 4 out of 5 of them. And that was no surprise to like, I sound really cocky here, but like that wasn't a surprise to my family. It was a little bit of a surprise to me because it was just so like humbling. They're like anonymous contests, and I'm like winning all of them. So, um, like my mom is my biggest fan. My English teacher throughout high school was like, is one of my biggest inspirations. Like I love her. And my other English teacher I hate. But anyway,
Fuck that bitch.
yeah, for real. But it's interesting because, like I'm going to dedicate a book to my mom and to an English teacher. But one of the English teachers that I'm dedicating like a book to, she also failed me like 2 or 3 times. Like I was not always the brightest student, but I was a great writer. Like I could win an audience over. But anyway, it's like getting so dark out here. But
Yeah, it was cool kind of seeing the freaking background slowly dark in the last couple minutes. That's pretty funny.
yeah,
Um,
but yeah,
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like everyone always has that one teacher where it's like, oh, they made the difference. I had an English teacher
yeah,
too. Shout out Miss Jorgensen. I was a dickhead of a student. Like I was a real just asshole. Didn't care. I had more tardies than I was on time for, a ridiculous amount of stuff. I just didn't care. But she always would like pull me aside and be like, just compliment my writing. I was like, oh, thanks, man. Or I compliment like, like my talking to people. I was like, oh, that's weird. The only teacher that ever kind of was like nice in that sense. So that's cool that you kind of had that like type of thing where they inspire you to the point where you're gonna dedicate a book to them. Like that's beautiful.
yeah.
That's beautiful. It's always the English teachers. I feel like, man. It's always them.
Well, and she was a dick too. That's the thing.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like she wasn't, like I said, like she failed me like 2 or 3 times, a couple times, and I didn't even necessarily deserve it. But she saw me, like, bless her. I'm so thankful that she had this perspective. But she saw me, like she would tell me, she would be like, you're gonna go on to write and stuff like that, and that meant a lot because at the time my dad was, an alcoholic and couldn't keep a job. We were living in poverty, so it meant a lot to have like that um, structure there that was like, hey, like keep going, But anyway, I mean, that being said, she was a dick, and she would like, if she didn't like something I did, like she would call it out in class. She wasn't, I wasn't teacher's pet, but anyway, yeah. So I don't think it'll be a surprise um, when I'm making it writing. But I do think it'll be a surprise that I'm making it because, like, on the real, I've been struggling for like a minute, and I feel like that's kind of a writer's life sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of, I'm sure there are, but I can't think of an author that I like that's had like a pitch perfect like upbringing, you know, or even like filmmakers or anything like that, art, even rapper, anything. It's like there's something romanticized about the notion that this person went through some shit. You know, I don't know if it's a human to human thing where people just like feel it or if they resonate in some regard or if it's just the work stands it's for itself, but there's something that comes from struggle, you know, for whatever
Yeah.
kind of it is. It definitely makes you who you are in a sense. If that has to be part of it, but like yeah, there's more to that. I feel like than just like making who you are. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said about like the darkness and how like beauty can come out of it. And I think you just expand when you experience that kind of density. So it's like maybe because my first memory as a 3 year old is torturing and burning fairies, right? Maybe that's something that gives me a wider range of experience to write at a deeper level.
Yeah. Kind of. We kind of said it forward with the idea already, but it's kind of like the idea of tapping into something that's not fully, maybe not even your own, but you're tapping into that field or energy or whatever it might be. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think ideas are like that too, because it's we've been talking for probably over 2 hours, and it's like, for me personally, I haven't thought about everything I'm gonna say. Like even as I'm speaking right now, like I'm not consciously thinking about the words that come out. They're just coming out, but it's like where are they coming from? When
Yeah.
I ask a question or you answer or anything, it's like, did we really just come up with all this shit to say in the last 2 hours? I don't know. It's a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe we're just tapping into
Absolutely.
something. Yeah, it's
Yeah. No, totally. It's like that tapping in. It's like it already exists, and then you just, we happen to be like matches for the physical manifestation of that higher plane energy, whatever.
fuck yeah. For better or worse, people tap in the wrong ones, but it's there. Yeah, it's omnipresent no matter what. Um, so what is like? I'm gonna let you go soon because I've just been asking you so many questions. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you're great.
What is like? How do I phrase this? What drives you to keep going in the times where you're like? I assume you get writer's block eventually, at time to time. I assume there's parts where you want to scrap what you're doing and say it's shit. I assume there might not be, but I'm just assuming there's moments where you're like, this is what am I doing? I feel like everybody in every professional life, even if it's a passion, there's always those moments where like, what the fuck? What am I doing? Do you ever have those
Yeah.
moments?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of those moments, honestly. Like I'd say more of those moments than not. Which is something that I would like to change. I'd like to experience more of that just flow and um, but something that keeps me going. Um, I think just the satisfaction of writing something and then rereading it and going, oh, that's actually good. And then having an audience comment on it, like that was just one of my favorite things in high school when I would enter these competitions is just having the anonymous feedback of people just being like, oh my God, my mind is blown right now. Like this is so cool. Like you have to finish it. And, it's like they're not even friends. They're random people. You know what I mean? Like, I guess there's a deep level of validation to that. And whether that's like egotistical or not, I'm not, really positive, but that to be honest, it may not be like the most spiritually correct answer, but that's a lot of what keeps me going is like the feedback of people just getting excited about it. Like that'll keep me going when I feel like I have nothing left.
Yeah, that'll do it for sure. I mean, yeah, I feel like it's really hard to keep going with something when there's no actual gratification from it. Yourself's a good one; it's important, but we're human. So when we're not getting that feedback from other people who have no correlation to whatever we're producing, I feel
Right.
like yeah, it's like And when I say I'm not saying writing. I'm saying just everything in life, obviously. But I feel like, yeah, that's definitely important for sure. Because if Quentin Tarantino made a movie and 6 people bought tickets to it, you think he'd make another movie? He'd probably stop. He'd probably be like, what? 6 you know? You'd be like, fuck that. You know,
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's like you're able to touch people in a way that you can't normally. And I just live for that, you know? And it's like, there are things that I can't do and I have to deal with them, you know, every single day. Like, but there are things that I can do. And one of them is writing. And so, yeah, I think that's what keeps me going.
with that being said, do you keep like things in your head that you're constantly kind of like battling yourself over, and you use writing to kind of fill the void of kind of not confronting the ideas, but kind of like, you know, suppressing them temporarily? Does it help kind of cope with other things?
Like what kind of ideas do you mean like I'd be suppressing?
Yeah, I'm very vague in my questions. I'm sorry. Like, are there any
No.
like aspects of life where you're like not most confident, or you know, it's something that's kind of like, you know, animosity filled, or you know, it's a cortisol stressor or whatever? Is there anything like that where it's like, you know, you just kind of step back in those times and you just kind of like put them on the back burner and just fill it in with, you know, I'm gonna do what I love, you know, like do you use it
Yeah.
to cope sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm kind of like in real life like a functional idiot.
Jesus,
Um,
okay.
like I'm the dumb blonde, you know. Um, and like, listen, I'm gonna give myself some credit because it's like this is so far out there, but like I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I can actually memorize 250 numbers in a day. So like if like I set a goal to memorize like a shitload of pi because I found this out randomly that I can just like memorize numbers. So I'm not saying I'm an idiot, but I am saying I'm a fucking idiot. Like I'm telling you, like I'm the person that goes to the store and has one thing to get and comes home and it's like, did you get the milk? And it's like, no. Like I forgot it, or like I'm the clumsy waitress and I'm the, you know, just like the like I just can't, you know, it's like I just can't do it right. Like and it seems like my entire life it's been just it's so simple. It's right in front of you. Why, like, you know, why can't you do that? Like you know, it's like, and I'm a girl, so luckily I get away. Oh, she's just dumb blonde, you know.
Yeah.
But writing is the one thing where I'm like, I could actually kick your ass in this, you
Yeah.
know, like not you personally, but
No,
if I
you
was,
definitely could. You definitely could. So
I think it depends on what, but it's the one thing where I'm like, eat my dust, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it definitely compensates for the fact that my entire life it's like, don't send Jessie to do a job, she'll mess it up. Like really.
Man. You feel that way about yourself though, or is it because of like how environmentally you think people perceive you?
Um I no, I think I really am that way
Hmm.
sometimes. Like it's just ADD. Like
No, yeah.
ag- again, like I told you with the numbers thing, like it's weird. I can memorize like almost 300 numbers in a day, like easy. Like it's really weird. But when it comes to like regular functional stuff, it's like I've just been the dumb blonde of my friend group since I can remember. So I think writing helps me compensate for that.
I mean, it might be better than being the conspiracy nut of the friend group. I've always been that guy, so I guess it could be worse
That
sometimes.
too.
Yeah.
That
Okay, well, you
too,
got both
right?
of them, so it's like fuck. Okay, bad set of hands. Um, Crazy. Yeah, I think it's important for everybody to know too how like openly you know, like what's the word? My mind's not there right now. How open you are to like helping others with the similar thing too, because I hit you up out of the legit blue and was just like, I don't even know how the conversation started when I was talking about like the manuscript thing, and you were like, "Oh, dude, yeah, I'll hear." I was like, "Oh shit, really?" And I wasn't expecting, you know. And then you said you were a writer, and I was like, "Oh fuck!" I got real nervous, and when we talked on the call, and I was kind of reading off, you know, what I had written so far. I was like, kind of stuttering, and I was like, I don't get nervous like that. I can talk to anybody about anything. But in that moment, I was like, oh man. But soon I was like, oh no, she's like actually listening. Like she actually has like, you know, criticisms and, you know, ideas and feedback. So that's good for the audience to know, like, you know, pretty down to earth person when it comes to this subject. I respect it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I know.
Absolutely.
I'm like, I hope I didn't sound too cocky. I'm like, I will be an author. Mark my words.
Gotta manifest it, man. What was it, Jim Carrey who wrote out the check for $1 million for himself, and then
Yeah.
like a month
Hmm.
before it like became invalid, and he was able to cash it. It's like fuck, something
Wow.
to that, man. Something to that. Well, anyways, I had Joe. Sorry about that. I said Jess. I appreciate the
Sure.
conversation so much, and I'm sorry to cut it short. We could have kept going. I need sleep, unfortunately.
Yes, I
For
feel you.
whatever reason, humans need it, but whatever. Um, but yeah, seriously, thank you for this conversation. Thank you for letting me take like a you know, a real weird analytic approach to like your mind and this stuff. I hope it wasn't
Yeah,
too like bizarre questions and whatnot.
not at all. Thank you so much for having me on. I mean, I love talking about this and really anything. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you everybody for watching. And yeah, I'm gonna leave the link to that website you mentioned earlier. I already forgot the name, so it's a good thing I said I'm gonna link it because I'm very forgetful. I'm gonna link
Yes.
the website for the writing in the bio and anything else that you may want to send me. So feel free to check the description of this video, everybody. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I appreciate it. Any final thoughts or anything like that?
Just everybody, I would say I would leave with saying, like, with what we were just saying, like, everybody is smart in their own way. And it's like that quote by Einstein, I think it was, like, you can't judge a fish on how it
Hmm.
climbs a tree. So if you can't climb a tree, maybe you can write or something.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
That's great advice right there. Take it to the heart, everybody. That's real shit. All right, thank you everybody for watching. Appreciate you. One love. Take it easy.